Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Dustin. Thank you for being here this early morning Saturday. It's snowy and cold here, but I'm so glad you're here to keep me warm and cozy and hang out and talk with my buddy Keith. We've been friends for a good while, and has been integral with me being as successful as I am on YouTube. He's been helping me keep my sanity, keeping me from going off the rails and maybe not putting out content. But anyway, I want you to meet him. Let's go ahead and bring him over. He is, like I said, a very good friend of mine. Welcome. How are you today, sir?
Hey, Dustin. Thanks for having me. Pretty good. How are you?
Doing great. Oh, it's a little bit different talking in front of people, isn't it?
A little bit. Yeah. I kind of still just kind of focus on us.
Yeah. That's what we do here. So I kind of wanted to bring you on because obviously we're pretty good friends, I would say,
Yeah.
and you have been able to accomplish some things that I think could be helpful to a lot of people. My subscribers and more, anybody who may watch this, I would like for you maybe to give a little bit of backstory on you, maybe like who you are, like what you do, because this is not going to be a keto focused interview necessarily. I know that you probably have limited your carbs and such over time, but more so, there's other important aspects to why I had you on here today. And I wanted to see if maybe you could elaborate on that, but kind of give people an understanding of who you are, kind of what you do, high
Yeah,
level
sure.
if you want. Go into as much detail as you want, also, if you want.
Yeah. So I guess a little bit about me. I've pretty much been in IT most of my life, and that's what I currently do. And I do a lot with artificial intelligence and Chat GPT now. And obviously, I dabbled in YouTube a lot and in a lot of social media things, TikTok, all of that. And besides all of that, a little bit more personal than that is in my recovery journey, where I struggled with addiction for a long time and kind of lost everything for a while there. So it's been about 6 years now. And uh, since I've, done any drugs or drank anything. So that's been a huge part of my story, I would say. But I don't really let it define me too much. I do help people get sober and um, yeah, stay sober myself. So I focus a lot of my energy outside of work, with sobriety and also just helping people in general. So I would say over the past 6 years, I've started giving back a lot more, and yeah. And as far as keto goes, yeah, I did try keto for a while. Me and my wife did, and it helped a lot. But we've discussed before. I kind of got the keto flu or what have you after like two weeks or something. That was rough. But I'd say we did it for 6 months or so, and I think the big thing that I learned with doing that was I started getting really conscious of what I was eating and like looking at more of the nutritional value and like looking at labels and looking at what I was actually eating. Uh, and it was all around the same time I was doing IT for Whole Foods Market. So they kind of mixed together really well. And yeah, that's really a lot I would say about about me. Unless there was something else that you can think of, but yeah.
Well, I wanted to kind of dig a little deeper into um, the sobriety aspect because I think that could be helpful to some that may be struggling with that. And I know you said that you don't let it define you, but it is something that you've overcome, or not necessarily you have been able to basically put it in remission, I would say, because you probably never fully overcome, just like someone like myself with food addiction. You
Mhm.
never quite beat it. It's always kind of at your back. And I kind of wanted to see if you could elaborate and share your experiences with that. Like what kind of avenues led you to, down that road? And then like what was the tipping point for you to start down the path of recovery?
So I would say initially when I first started drinking and things like that. It wasn't an addiction per se. Like it was just fun. Everything was really fun, going out. Um, and obviously we saw each other at bars a lot, and it was just kind of a social thing for a very long time. And then it started turning into more of I was doing it by myself and hiding it for a long time, and drinking just too much, and it eventually progressed to doing it all day, every day. And I was just maintaining trying to maintain a buzz, because at some point you start getting physically addicted to it, to where your body starts going into withdrawal if you don't drink. Um, and then I think around that point, when I started getting physically dependent, I was like, something's wrong here. um, and it it took me like slowly losing everything, like relationships and money and jobs and all of that, for me to get desperate enough to try to figure out like what I needed to do. And I tried pretty much, everything. I tried different medications. I went to doctors, like therapists, psychiatrists, all that. And none of it really worked. But I can't say that those don't work for other people, because they may. A lot of things you'll hear is like, maybe I just wasn't ready, and maybe I wasn't. I thought I was, and um, yeah, I think that a full tipping point is after 5 rehabs and detox centers. I got kicked out of my house, so I couldn't see my kid and my wife, and I had to go back and live with my mom for like 9 months. And I think that was a huge, huge wake up call too, because like I was finally starting to have some like um, consequences, like real, that were very important to me. Like, my family was very important. So once I didn't have them, I was like, all right, like now it's time. So that, I think that was the final straw that I remember of like really, really like digging into figuring out what was wrong with me and how to fix it. And yeah, and I would say maintaining it now. At this point, I read a lot. I try to get as much information as I can about addiction. And what we've talked before with like the food addiction, and like a lot of addictions are the same. Like in when you get down to the core, like a lot of the parts of it are similar. Like you hide it from people. Like if you go out to a restaurant and there is drinking, like I would drink one or two, but I wouldn't drink as much as I wanted to, because I never saw the point towards the end of like just drinking to drink. It was like I wanted to feel the effects. I wanted to drink like I wanted to drink, and I didn't want anybody else to see it, because I started getting ashamed of it as well. And I think a lot of that happens with other addictions. Like you want to kind of hide it because you're ashamed of it, or you're afraid people are going to judge you. And it's yeah, and you just start kind of just hiding it and being ashamed. So
There are a lot of parallels because there are experiences that I've had along the way with food addiction, and you don't even realize at all, at the time, that there's an issue with food addiction. There's parallels. Uh, One thing that was like, for me, I think that kind of kept me from drinking heavy, because yeah, we would go out during the weekends and we would drink and we would have a good time, but I would never drink at home necessarily, unless for it was like somebody was over. So it was like always a social event. But and I never liked eating, or I never liked drinking with food, because it never tasted right with me. So like I would have always rather have had like chocolate milk or something with my food, soda, whatever, over alcohol. And then so I think for me, like weirdly enough, food addiction kept me from being an alcoholic, because I would rather have had the food than the alcohol. And both will kill you eventually, you know what I mean? Like and the shame aspect of it. I mean, there was times where would go out with friends and we would go to dinner and then we would like walk and then go get some ice cream. And then I would always, feel shameful or self-conscious because even though I wouldn't necessarily get as much ice cream as I would want, like, talking about having multiple drinks, I would get a smaller serving of ice cream because I didn't, even though I would want to get the biggest and fill it as high, as much as I could and sit in a corner and just and eat it. There's definitely the shame aspect of that, when you go out to eat or even, I would do the same thing. I would stop at a fast food restaurant on my way home from somewhere and come home and eat it in my room. So there's definite parallels with addiction, whether it's food, alcohol, drugs. There's just obviously more socially acceptable. Like like when it comes to food, like you have like people will look at you the same with alcohol, but there's not the same kind of consequences necessarily when it comes to food, which is kind of a blessing, I guess, and a curse at the same time, because like if you're somebody, you're getting falling down drunk all the time and you can't maintain relationships and you can't maintain a job, obviously there's a lot more negative connotations right then and there that people can't ignore. But they'll see you eat and go, well, he probably shouldn't eat that much, but they're never going to say anything, at least most of the time, because it's not polite.
Yeah.
But they'll judge you the same way with drinking, but you're not like, I never go into like a restaurant and eat a whole pizza and then like fall down. You know what I mean? Like, but I mean, if that was the case, and maybe, it would be something that you could get away from a lot easier. But, I don't think there's like, I mean, there's Overeaters Anonymous, isn't there?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I just like the whole, like, that didn't ever seem like it would be something that I would want to do. But I mean, kind of what I do now, get in front of people. I'm a food addict. Here's how I try to maintain my whatever it is, whatever you call it. Like, it's not sobriety, but it looks like a lot of people in the chat are meeting up in Cincinnati today, and I don't get to go. Rude. Hungry, he said he has a question. Goes, do you own a clock? Rude, because we were like 2 minutes late.
Oh.
John Gugahan is here. Danny Beach is here. Jeff Foltz is here. Thank you all so much. Taylor Ann, Evelyn, thank you, dear. Cindy, Charlie, Darth Carnivore is here. Jackie is here. All my wonderful friends are here, and they're all going. Well, not everybody, but a lot of them are going to Cincinnati. There's a like a 30-person-ish meetup in like a suburb or somewhere close to Cincinnati today, like a barbecue restaurant.
That sounds good. I mean, that's not too far.
No, I don't get to go because by the time I found out about it, I had made a commitment to go to Columbus next month for another meetup. And Shannon and I talked about going to this one, and she goes, "Which one do you want to go to?" And I was like, "Well, I've already RSVP'd for Columbus, so that's the one I will go to."
Yeah, I wanted to say one thing that you mentioned is, I wouldn't eat because I wanted to drink more. When you said you wouldn't drink because you wanted to eat more, like I was the opposite. Like I wanted to feel I wanted the effects quicker. It was just funny I didn't say funny, but it's
well, I mean, it is. I mean, it's funny, but not in a comical way. It's that sad funny. Like, I mean, it's a definite like that definite parallel. You know what I mean? Like, even if I would have a drink with meal, it was always something like at Red Lobster. I would get one of those sunrise coladas or whatever, which is basically like a pina colada milkshake.
Oh yeah, those things are delicious.
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah, and yeah, and the one last thing I'll say on this, because I don't want to bore your entire audience, is like with the Overeaters Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, stuff like that. Like, I do like aspects of it, but I've kind of since again I research a bunch, and I look into the science of a lot of things. And again, even when I was doing keto, I wanted to see why it worked, how it worked. I wanted to kind of like drill down and figure it out. So that's what I've done with addiction. And when I help people with it as well, like I use a lot of science based, fact based. I shouldn't, there's a mix of everything. So I found like any way that you can beat, your addiction or like figure it out. I think like that's crucial any way you can. And the best way that I've found is like find somebody that has made it through and just kind of like ask them what they do. Because a lot of times someone I've found that if somebody has struggled with something and made it out the other side and they're getting better and they have been for a while, like they can help you. And I think that's true with anything in general, but a lot of people are afraid to ask. Um, so yeah, like that's the big thing. Like just just if you get wind of somebody that has beat something that your addiction that you have, like just talk to them or see what they're doing and ask them. And literally the thousands of times that I've suggested this, I've never heard someone say, no, I'm not going to tell you my story. I'm not going to help you, anything like that. So, yeah, that's the big overall all thing.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, that's what helped me, because when I started this journey, I found a podcast, the Two Keto Dudes, and they were basically in real time sharing their keto experience. Well, with Richard had already been doing it for a while and was coming in with the experience, and the whole thing with the podcast was Richard was helping Carl start the journey of keto. And in real time, they would talk about their successes, their failures, and they would talk about recipes and mail, and they grew and grew. And it was a way to kind of follow along. And I was able to kind of join in on that. And then they created, like, I can't remember what it was. It wasn't a Discord. It was some other like message board platform, because they tried Facebook and it just got too big and it was unmanageable and you couldn't search for topics and such. So, um, and this is long before I started doing, like, I had just maybe started putting the keto stuff on my Instagram. And then I started, it was long before doing YouTube or even having an idea to be a voice on YouTube and out there in the world, so to speak, sharing my own journey. Because something that I was listening to yesterday was an episode of Joe Rogan, and he had a gentleman on, and I can't remember his name right now. Two gentlemen on the podcast, and it was not diet related, but it was personal progression related, which obviously ties into what we do here, whether it's diet, alcohol, whatever. They were basically, saying that like it kind of goes along with what I said, like consistency and just, and I'm messing it all up because I listened to this yesterday and I'm in the car and I went to the dentist yesterday morning and I'm on the way back from the dentist and I'm listening to this and they're saying all this stuff and I'm like, that'll be great for tomorrow. I'll talk all about it. And here we are. I forgot. But so, I mean, he got let out of jail. He had been like convicted of a crime and got like for some small crime. I can't say it was a small crime, but it was what it was. But he got like 50 years, and he got let out after 25. And basically just how you have to do the best you can with the circumstances you have. And I think that's kind of a parallel with us. And it's teachable. Like, how can I take my experience? And because there's a difference between somebody who is certified in an issue like you are, whether or not, I don't know for sure, but whether or not you as a person are a certified coach with addiction recovery or not, they're certified. And then there's like, what would it be the other word where, like, because certified doesn't mean you experienced it. Certified means that you studied it, you've learned all about it from a book, or a seminar or a class, and now you're trying to teach others, but you are somebody, whether you're certified or not, you've been in the trenches, you've dug yourself out, and now you can, when you're helping people, have that almost street cred, if you will, that, hey, I was there. Here's my lowest. Here's where I'm at now. Here's how I can help you. So that is obviously a parallel with somebody in prison trying to get others out of prison, with addiction with alcohol, and myself when it comes to food addiction. I was over 400 pounds. I'm now not 400 pounds. I'm 100-ish pounds over, lost from being that weight. So even if I were to go and become a certified health coach, that will never overshadow my experience. That will never overshadow your experience of being where you were kicked out of your home, not able to see your kids, separated from your wife, all because of alcohol. And you didn't let that stop you. You decided to do something about it because all of that meant more to you. So you fought, obviously, and succeeded because you obviously at home with your wife. You have now 2 children, correct?
Yep.
So you're at home, you're with your wife, you have 2 kids, and your relationship, as far as I'm aware from the outside looking in, is as healthy as it ever was.
Yes, 100%. I'm a completely different person than I was like 6 years ago, yeah. And to put in words kind of what you're saying about the certification, the way that I was told and that I tell people is like, there's here's how you learned it or earned it. And like the street cred, like I earned my spot here and you have earned your spot too. Like losing 100 pounds is no small thing. And what I think what you were saying boils down to is you're never too far gone. Like a lot of people, and I do have some people that I'm very good friends with that do that went to Overeaters Anonymous, things like that. And they're also in the program because they found once they stopped drinking that they had to fill that addiction with something else. And a lot of people go to food because it's very, I'm trying to think of the word. I don't know, relaxing. Like it hits kind of the same parts of your brain, like the pleasure.
It's definitely the dopamine. There's the dopamine hit.
Yeah.
There's that satisfaction. It's like when I quit smoking 13 years ago, I basically picked up a coffee addiction.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I would have coffee from time to time, but it wasn't a daily thing that I thought about every day. I had caffeine. I liked energy drinks and stuff. But when I quit smoking, the job, I had there was breaks. And well, what do you do what do you do with yourself if you have a break and you don't smoke? What do you do? How do you feel? How do you fill that time without wanting to go smoke? Well, we decided to start walking because on our work campus, there were 3 buildings in the work campus, and the 3rd building over had a coffee shop in it. So we would walk and get coffee. Realistically, I was spending more money on coffee a week than I was spending on cigarettes during the week, like Monday through Friday. Now, what I would spend on the weekend if we were going out was a whole other ball game. But during the week, I was smoking like a pack every 2, maybe 3 days if I was being conservative with my smoking. But that was at the time, like what? Cigarettes were, say, $6 a pack at the time. I have no idea what they cost now, 13 years later. But I was like, that was like, so $3 a day, little, or maybe less than $3 a day. I was spending $3.20 some cents a day on coffee. And that was just one coffee, little, 20-ounce coffee. So I picked up another addiction. So I traded smoking for coffee. And then when I quit doing the carbs and eating and overeating, I doubled down on the coffee. I was drinking more coffee because I was then putting in the fat and all the butter and everything in it, which was the trend at the time.
Yeah.
And I was, having an 1,100 calorie a day coffee, which is mind-boggling.
That's a lot.
Jackie did say something in here that she said something I should have bookmarked it. It's here. Let me go back up. She says, Yeah, with food, you can eat donuts and shakes and eat all the things you want anytime you eat but then when you eat a pound of beef, everyone loses their mind. That was something that happened to me. A good friend of mine, people saw me getting bigger and bigger and bigger, never said anything. And then I started going keto and it started being more meat heavy and more meat based. And then people were like, well, enjoy your heart attack. Even though I was more likely and basically speeding down the track of heart attack the way that I was going than what I turned into, or how I transitioned out of food addiction into the ketogenic lifestyle, or a meat heavy whole food based lifestyle.
Yeah, that's the rough thing. I think when you start changing, the people around you kind of like see you changing, and I can't say this for everybody. It's just a lot of things I've noticed is like if I go around people that I used to drink with or people that I knew before I got very, heavily into drinking and then stopped, like they don't know how to interact with you. And a lot of times they're uncomfortable. And then it usually comes out as something that's kind of hurtful, like eating a pound of beef, like enjoy your heart attack. Like, dude, I'm trying to get healthy over here. Like,
Yeah.
even though you don't understand it, like kind of, support me or don't say anything. Um, but a lot of times people are like, oh, he's changing. I don't know how to interact with him. And a lot of times it just comes out wrong. Um, and yeah, like I think too, and I'm not trying to bring too much back in, is like drinking is one of the most socially acceptable things out there. And as well as eating, I mean, you have to eat obviously to stay
Yes.
alive. And drinking is almost celebrated, especially when you're younger. Like drinking's the thing. Like
That's
that's
how we know each other.
yeah, and it's like, man, it's so celebrated in everywhere. Super Bowl, all the TV commercials, billboards, and it's like it's acceptable, but it's poison. I mean, when you boil alcohol down, it's poison. And and if you go back to addiction, is like you're doing something to forget something else. Like there's always something underneath that you're trying to squash that you don't deal with, even if you don't know it's there. Usually, there's something below the addiction that you need to deal with, and that will kind of help you. And the last thing that I heard you say too is, and this was recent that I heard, it was someone was like, right now, if somebody offered you a cigarette, you wouldn't ask what brand is it. You would just say, no, I'm not a smoker, and not anything else. Like it's not there anymore. Like you change. Like Dustin is not a smoker. Like, and if people met you after you quit smoking, like they would say that about you because like you changed. And that's how I interact. I mean, with people, I go to Vegas every year for work, and people are like, "Hey, you want to drink?" I'm like, "No, I don't. I don't drink." It's not like, "No, I don't drink anymore," or "Oh, what kind of drink is it?" I might be able to do that. Like, it's just not me. Like, then that's why I was saying, like, I don't let it really define me, so I don't push it on other people. But I'm just like, no, I don't drink, and that's it. And sometimes people think it's weird, and sometimes people are like, "What?" and they want to question it, but it's none of their business, really. Uh, and same with people doing diets and keto and things like that. Like if somebody offered you cake, you would just say, no, no, I don't eat cake. And if they question you, a lot of people are nervous about that and think they need to say something, and you don't. Like it's none of their business, and you just kind of just like, I don't eat cake. And if they think you're weird, who cares? Like you're trying to get healthy and stay alive, like I'm trying to
Yeah.
survive here. Like
I mean, that's the thing. Like transitioning out of even what how much I used to drink. I never had necessarily a problem or whatever, but I mean, I still drank every weekend, every Friday night, maybe Saturday night. I would drink a lot. Like some Saturdays, I'd drink a whole fifth of vodka. I mean, that's a problem in of itself. I would, towards the end of what really kind of got me to stop drinking, even just socially, was, I would be up, at my friend's house for my birthday, and every birthday I would black out.
yeah.
You would just get to the point where and then that was this thing that kind of happened. Oh, New Year's Eve, I decided to have a couple of drinks. Couple turned into a whole bunch, and then I'm puking in the bathroom and passing out on the couch, and you know what I mean, and feeling awful. I mean, I felt bad for a week after that. I mean, and I probably would have felt bad for a week after it in my 20s, but it would have been covered up by other things.
Yeah.
And one thing I've also noticed, and we can touch on this a little bit here, is what happened to all the friends that you had that you would see at the bars all the time when you stopped going to the bars or you stopped drinking? What happens to those friends?
So a lot of them I still am acquaintances with, but I don't. Initially when I was trying to quit, and I just wouldn't go out. And a lot of people think like, oh, you're gonna lose all your friends or um, all of this stuff. But it's like, man, that's how we knew each other. Like we met at bars, we had a good time there, we were friends while we were drinking, and then when we weren't, like maybe that's what we had in common. And so a lot of people that I met while I was drinking, I don't really keep in touch with like 90% of them because we just had different lives. Like that's what we had in common. So, you know, um I didn't, there were no bridges burned. I didn't feel like anything like that. And I didn't not like them because they still drank. Cause I mean, that's who cares? Like that's their thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, a lot of those acquaintances and friends, if you will, like I don't talk to him too much. I got him on Facebook. We'll like each other's posts, but it's like we just went different ways in life, and like that was our thing that we had in common, and now we don't, and that's okay. Um, but a lot of people are afraid of that. Like, well, I'll lose all my friends, and it's like, okay, well, maybe they don't have a problem. They probably don't, and if they do, it's not your point to judge. So it's just kind of you changing, and I think just change is hard. Like if you're doing a major shift in your entire like that was my identity was I was going out and partying. Like that was my identity. People knew me as that. When I was out, I was having fun and laughing and doing goofy stuff. And that was my identity. And then when you go to change that, it's a big shift and it's definitely hard. But I would say nobody ever really below the surface ever judged me for not drinking. Like they would poke at me a little bit, like, "Oh, why aren't you doing it? Oh, don't be weird," or stuff like the normal peer pressure stuff that you get with anything. It doesn't have to be drinking; it's anything. If you're in a social situation, like, "Oh, why aren't you eating cake?" Like, what are you weirdo? Like, what? Who doesn't like cake? It's the same thing. Like, there's always that. There's always going to be one or two people that are like that, and they just don't know how to interact with it.
Yeah,
Interact with.
and I see that too. So, like, whether you stop like drinking, for me, even like, you know, Shane and I will still have a few drinks here and there, like typically vacation. Like typically, like for me, if I'm at the ocean, my feet in the sand, in the sand, excuse me, having a nice frozen drink or whatever is perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, and I understand that that's not going to derail me because I mean, even then there's sugar in that. That's not keto. And I mean, it's an alcoholic beverage, which is something that I don't typically do. It's also laden with sugar, which is something that I don't typically do. But I mean, it's a couple while we're on vacation, feet in the sand, I'm probably gonna have pizza or something too while we're on vacation or whatever. But one thing that I've noticed, and even my short time in the community, like the ketogenic community, as a person that is trying to build a community, I've had people that will briefly come into the community. They will try carnivore, keto, whatever. Then they see that maybe they need a different avenue and they decide to try something else. And then they'll back away from the community because they feel that they don't belong. And one of the people that this was going on with, I was because they had reached out to me and they said, I have all this stuff that we're not going to use. Do you want it? Almond flour and sweeteners and stuff. And I was like, sure. And I looked her in the face when she was giving me this stuff. I was like, you don't have to leave this community just because you're doing something different. The community that I'm trying to build is not one that, yes, my name is Keto Simple. The channel name is Keto Simple, but that to me encompasses, keto, carnivore, low carb, whatever it is you're trying to do. Even if you're vegan, my whole goal is to bring people together and celebrate the fact that we're doing something to better ourselves. And this is a journey in which we have to discover a lot of things about ourselves that we haven't given into discovering, because self-discovery can be a terrifying prospect, because so often what we're doing, like you said, is we're running away from whatever it is. We're burying whatever it is that's inside of us that we don't like, with alcohol, with drugs, with whatever. And for someone to go, well, I've decided to go down this path of self-betterment that may be different than what you think I should be doing, I'm going to back away. And I was like, that's not something that I would recommend. Just because I don't see this as a keto only. Just like I'm having you on here today to talk about your path to being a better person, to better yourself. And that doesn't necessarily mean food, nutrition. You briefly touched on the fact that you are more conscious now about the foods that you put in your body. But one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on, one, I like talking to you. We have a good time. We have a good, we have a good friendship, and you have something of value to offer that I don't, as far as the alcohol recovery and the things that you have lost and regained. Those are paramount to people, because there was a lot of people out there who have been through that. But as what Danny says here, he says that there's definitely similarities between alcoholism and food addiction. I have dealt with both hidden drinking, and I'm still fighting the Reese cups that I told you about. So he was talking about like being at Menards, and you're at the checkout, and you see those Reese cups, or you see that Snickers bar, or even at some checkouts at the grocery store, they'll have the checkout that has all the booze on it. And I mean, there's probably a point in time where you were at the checkout and you'd see the pint bottles of whatever your favorite booze was, and you're like, I bet that's delicious.
Oh yeah, I still get that. I still, to this day, every once in a while, especially the fruity drinks, the ones that taste really good, that hit on multiple levels. Yeah, and what happens with a lot of people when they quit drinking is, since alcohol gets metabolized as sugar eventually, like a lot of people pick up eating candy and eating ice cream a lot, and because it hits the same part of your brain, sugar does. And I will say this: when I started doing the keto thing, I still have habits that I formed while doing the keto, and just because I was conscious of it and I did it for so long, like I don't drink I don't drink sugary drinks. I switched actually to a bunch of water instead of drinking like two monsters a day and drinking a bunch of soda. Like I don't do that anymore. And a lot of it was because when I was doing the keto, it made me conscious of it, and I kind of broke that habit. And that was something kind of you were going on, like it takes time, like you just have to, and it's hard, but like replacing a bad habit with a good habit. Like, you said you switch from cigarettes to coffee, but it's like some people, there's a different avenue you can go, and I still think it comes down to balance too, because you can do anything unhealthily, even going to the gym. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
go there too much, like you just it takes a while to find the balance, because with food or alcohol, anything, like you can buy it. It's not illegal. You can buy as much as you want, and you can take in as much as you want. And it's kind of the overindulgence both ways. Like you're just doing it too much. Um, but yeah, the Reese's cups. I mean, even with that, still like that is like it's like a snare, man. Like you walk down that little tiny, where they close you in. I mean, they do this on purpose, and they'll close you in those little things there, and it's easy to just grab it. Like it's people that have, especially keto and things like that, like trying to get away from sugar anything that's like, again, it's not illegal, it's readily available, it's cheap, it's easy to just like grab that and go. And society makes it real easy for you to do that because it's like the upsell at McDonald's. Like, you want fries with that? Like those little Reese's cups at the checkout lane. That's it. Like those are, do you want fries with that? Because you didn't go in there planning to get it, but it was right there and they pushed it right in your face and you're like, And I do the same thing with candy. I see stuff like that there. And yeah, the hiding of it, you know, it happens. Like, you still want to kind of hold on to that piece of you that did overeat or that did eat sugar a bunch. Is like, you still, it's hard to break away from that person. And it's like, oh, I know how that tastes, and it tastes really good. I want to grab that, and it's hard. It is very hard, and the biggest thing that I've had to do, even with sugar stuff like that, because I did for a while, like I would do the same thing, but I would like tell on myself, at least to someone that wouldn't judge me, but enough to get it out of my head. Because if I held on to that, like that bit, it would turn into something else or eat at me. Like, man, I really shouldn't have done that. But I found just like telling someone that's not going to judge you that you did it, it's kind of like you get it out of your head and it's like, okay, I didn't die. They didn't leave me. Let's now I can move forward. Like little stuff like that, I've noticed held me back a lot too. Like grabbing little things, like around holidays, the sugar thing would come back. I for some reason love candy corn. A lot of people hate it, but I loved it. And I would just grab bags of that stuff and inhale it, even though we weren't eating sugar at the time. I'm like, Sonia, I bought a whole bag of candy corn and ate it in like 2 days. And she was like, what? And like, that was the end of it. And I was like, oh man, she didn't yell at me. She didn't judge me for it, because I had a lot of kind of like that thing where it was like, I felt like I snuck it, even though I wasn't really trying to do that, but it was like I took something for myself because I knew it tasted good and I was being like kind of selfish about it. But yeah, society doesn't make it easy to stop doing something that is legal and socially acceptable. I'll say that.
One thing that I've noticed, so kind of a two-part piece here. So a lady at work, Chandra's work, had given her a like a container after Halloween that had basically the little mini packs of pretzels and little cheese balls to give out instead of candy. And so she'd given it to us because, we have the toddler most of the time. And so she likes pretzels sometimes. So we give her some pretzels and we give her cheese balls sometimes. Because basically with her, it's a struggle just to get her to eat anything. So
Okay.
sometimes if we could just get her to eat something, that's kind of a win, unfortunately. Even though like recently this week, she's been like addicted to these breakfast sausages and eggs. So, I mean, we're winning the battle, but the overall, we're winning the war, but we lose certain battles. Right.
Yeah.
But in that, and the point of this, me explaining this, is I was in there digging for the cheese balls because that's what she liked over the pretzels, and at the bottom of the container was a single little mini, like fun size Crunch bar. And I picked it out and I looked at it, opened it up and I ate it, and then I took the package and I stuffed it into the trash can, almost like a hiding gesture.
Yeah.
It was not really a conscious thing, but I did stop and go, why did I push it down so nobody would see it?
Yeah.
Because I know Chandra doesn't like Crunch Bar. She's not gonna be mad that I ate the Crunch Bar instead of giving it to her. She's not gonna be mad that I ate the Crunch Bar because it was, a tiny little thing, and it was a moment of weakness. But it is the weirdness of it where like it was that realization, but why did I do that? Why do we feel that shame? And then another point thing that we were talking about is so Walmart's that I've noticed they're starting to do something. And I don't know, the Walmart in Avon has done something. Avon, Indiana, for anybody who's listening outside of Indiana. Is in central Indiana, is a little town or city, whatever you want to call it, called Avon, suburb of Indianapolis. And the Walmart there has basically encapsulated all of the checkout lanes inside of like a corral. So you have to go through, there's like one point of entry, and basically they've got these shelves with all the snacks, and everything, and soda, all the soda, like refrigerators and everything are all lined up neat. And so as you're waiting to get your turn to go into one of the self checkouts or one of like the very few cashiered checkouts, but they're all encapsulated in this corral. So you're looking at this, so you're standing there, and then all you have to look at are all the snacks. So everything, I mean, and to be fair, there is usually a small section of beef jerky, uh, pork, like little single serve bags of pork rinds. There is the more keto friendly stuff, but it's very small and not always the best. But it's a grocery store, and I mean, it's like they've built like almost even in with this is almost like a convenience store feel to it, to where you're in this, it's almost like they've got it to where they've even got like open face shelving with all the sodas. So as you're walking around, you'll see the sodas, the candy, and all that stuff. Then you get corralled into the line. And then even as you're into where the self checkouts are, there's a little short things with just in case you want your Coke or your Pepsi or whatever. It's all right there. And it's all so easy just to pick it up and go. So it's no wonder that Danny, I mean, I know he's not talking about Walmart, he was talking about Menards, but that stuff inundates us every time we go to the grocery store. We're going to get whatever it is, our groceries. I mean, even to go curtain rod or whatever from Walmart. Then you're inundated with snack foods, junk foods, and it's a wonder that we have the issues that we have today because you can't escape it. Even if you go to like, because Menards, I don't know where people are listening from, but Menards is like a hardware store that you can, like home fixer upper store. And so you can buy like leaf blowers and drywall or whatever, right? But you would go to get some screws and then like, well, I need to get this Reese cup too. So it's like they're setting us up to fail. And I understand that it's not illegal. But it's not necessarily ethical because most of that stuff too is at the eye level of children. And luckily for us, our granddaughter doesn't really much care for candy. She'll say she wants candy, then you give it to her, then she usually spits it out. Or she'll say, "I like cake," and then she won't like. Even on her first birthday, we try to do that ubiquitous thing with the birthday cake, and sit her with the birthday cake and put her hands in it, and she was just like, "I'm good." Got up and walked away. The funny thing was, she gets up and walks away, and other kids just go and pounce on it.
Yeah.
Kids that were younger than her were like, "Wait a minute, you don't want this?" I'm in, and they're digging into it. And she's just like, "Oh, there's water things over here. I'm gonna go get in the water." So I think maybe we're doing something right. But yeah, like I just, it's just that thing, like, I don't know. I'm sure they probably have some kind of alcohol there at the Walmart too, or whatever. But I mean, it's just not a focus for me in my brain. Like, I'm not looking out for that. I'm looking at like the candy and all that stuff. So I understand. He has a He says, with alcohol addiction, are there ever moments you feel you're restricting too much and depriving yourself? If so, how do you combat those moments or reframe how you view such moments? Now, the question, because in the ketogenic community with food, because we can't just not eat, we still have to eat. We still have to take in food. Now, we may restrict the types of food, obviously, but with a substance like alcohol, how this is a valid question, I think. How can one go about that? Because there's obviously typically no moderation when it comes to alcohol and drugs and such. But how would you kind of navigate that question?
So I understand. So I had to define replacements before I was going into a situation, before I went. Let's say, and I still do this a lot. It's a little bit more of a habit now. I used to have to try very hard, but like when you're going to the grocery store or something like that, like know that instead of this, I will get that. Because if I always have to have a plan, have to have a plan, or did, and making sure that I knew a valid replacement for something. And I did this when I was doing keto. Like I had to find a valid replacement, a keto replacement for something that I wanted or liked. And I needed to know that ahead of time, because when you're in the moment a lot, especially at first, like trying to replace that when you're right there. Like, what do you replace Reese's cups with? It's like you need to know that before, if that's like your vice, or that that's like one of the things that you might do. Um, I had to find valid replacements, and restricting and depriving myself. So a lot of times this meant I thought I was restricting or depriving myself of fun, because that's what I associated alcohol with, was fun. Because I mean, and I think a lot of people can understand this perspective. I had only 6 months with when I first started, and I went to Vegas. I had never been to Las Vegas, and what do you associate Las Vegas with? Partying and
Yeah.
gambling.
You
100%.
can literally walk up and down the streets with a fifth of Jack Daniels and no one's going to say anything to you.
Yeah, and a hooker right next to it. It doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
it's like the land of the free area. And I had to go there, and I talked to, my friend that was helping me, and I was like, dude, what do I do? Like, how do I tell people I'm not doing this? Like, this is in early stages of it, because for a while you're just kind of like, you have to be laser focused in a grind and like push everybody out while you're trying to like redo this part of you. So I thought I was depriving myself of fun, and I needed to figure out ways to, replace that or think of it in a different way. So, yeah. So I'll say with in the part of drinking, like I was drinking, I found like tonic and lime, like something that looked like I was drinking, and I felt like I was like there being social with everybody, because I didn't want to be the weird guy just standing there while everyone was drinking with nothing in my hand and look like the weird guy. So that's what I replaced it with at first, sparkling water, things like that. And then, when we were switching for keto, pancakes was a big one, because like that was the hardest thing to do, because this was like 4 or 5 years ago. And it was like, how do I replace flour? Like flour is everywhere. Like that was another thing I was gonna say. People that do keto are like, you guys are really strong, because you guys are like working to find different ways to eat healthy and do stuff that's not conventional. It's not easy. And that's what it comes down to. Like you gotta you gotta find, it's gonna be hard, but you gotta find something to replace it with. And at first I felt like I was restricting myself or depriving myself of a lot. But after a while, once you kind of get out of that mindset, like once your mind shifts to it and it's kind of like an automatic thing, again, like I don't eat this, I only eat this type of thing, it's a lot easier to just define yourself as not doing that. Um, but it takes time, just to find those replacements, or find that you don't need it. Sometimes you replace something for long enough and you realize that you thought you needed it, or you thought it was a core part of your habits, and once it's gone, you're like, oh wait, I didn't need that. But it's hard at first, really hard.
I've
If that
noticed
answers your
now,
question.
yeah, I've noticed now, because I have some other friends that are recovering alcoholics, and I noticed that they are doing things and they will show and drink non-alcoholic like vodka and whiskey and rum and things like that. There's all these products coming out. So basically it's like keto booze, almost like, it's like
Yeah.
boozeless booze. And I was kind of wondered, like, I always kind of thought it was silly, because that stuff isn't cheap and you're replacing something that you didn't necessarily need in the first place. But then I make the parallel, like here in the keto community, we do the exact same thing.
Yep.
We're replacing stuff that's equally as expensive. Like eating junk food is cheap. I mean, the monetary value of that is very cheap. The overall health consequences cost a lot. Then the adverse, you can look at it and say, okay, well, I'm doing these healthier replacements. They're expensive, but they're costing me less on the back end. So, like, if you're doing like Birch Benders, they make keto pancake mixes, and it's like $8 to $10 for a bag. What's a giant box of Bisquick, or like uh whatever the whatever the Hungry Jack or whatever
Yeah,
the
yeah,
pancake mix is or whatever. I can't even think. It's been so long since we bought it.
yeah.
But that stuff is like $2 for a gigantic container of it or whatever it is. I mean, inflation. But so you think about that. And like, so, I mean, it's because I find myself looking at the person who's recovering alcoholic and they're replacing their whiskey and vodka and still having non-alcoholic beer. And they're living that life with the non-alcoholic stuff. And I was like, and I caught myself almost judging them stupidly, naively, and then when you take a look at yourself, I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm buying the expensive replacements. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Um, have you tried any of those? Has that even been a concern for you?
So I personally did not want to do it because I felt like it was just, um, yeah, I didn't want to. Like, I felt like it was just like I wasn't fully giving up and turning into that other person that didn't drink because I felt like having the alcohol free stuff was just kind of like cheating almost, in the same way that I would what kind of to your point, like the sugar free or zero sugar Reese's cups versus the regular. Like, I feel like there's gonna be a point if you're still used to eating Reese's, or if I'm drinking non-alcoholic, it's gonna be very easy for me to just, well, it's still kind of the same. And all's for me, all it would take is like, one or two, and I'd be like, this isn't so bad. Is it really? Because you wouldn't see the immediate effects, and it would just be like, well, this isn't too bad. And then I would start going back to the easy, cheap way of doing something. I do know people that drink them, and yeah, I don't recommend the guys that I help. I don't recommend it at all. But whatever works for you. But yeah, I know what you mean about judging somebody else, like seeing them like drink the alcohol, zero alcohol, like Heinekens and stuff like that. I'm like, man, it doesn't work for me. And that's the way I have to think about it. Like, that's them, and they can make their own choices, and it doesn't need to affect me. But I don't do it because I am 99% sure it wouldn't take very long for me to start liking the taste of beer again, start liking the taste of alcohol. Because when you don't drink for a long time, kind of probably the same way with regular sugar. If you don't eat it for a long time and you go back and eat it, you're like, this doesn't taste as good as it used to, because you kind of quit having that like crutch of eating sugar or something, what have you. But yeah, if that answered that.
Well, that's kind of the things like when we like. So one thing I talked about last week on one of my lives was Shane and I went and we bought some stuff for Valentine's Day. We had initially planned to go and order some food in and spend time together on Valentine's Day. We ended up being at a car dealership until like 9:30 at night with our daughter, getting her into a new car. So we ended up at Walmart buying crap food, not enjoying it because it just didn't taste as good as it should have, except for the cheap ramen noodles, which were amazing. Which was, but it's like, and you mentioned the thing is like, I was never such a big person with drinking that, like, even though I abstained from drinking most of the time, like 99% of the time, like when I did have like that, like a shot of whiskey to me is still like, I enjoy whiskey, which is it's probably not a good thing because I enjoy the taste of whiskey. Jameson, I really like it. I mean, even the Costco Jameson, the big, huge half gallon you can get, is pretty good. Tastes just like it probably is Jameson, probably made by Jameson.
Yep.
Um, and I enjoyed that. I mixed that with some, like I had planned to drink New Year's. I went and bought like 4 2-liters of Coke Zero and had them in the garage for weeks prior. I was like, I'm gonna have a good time. Went overboard. Felt bad about it. The next day, I went to White Castle and got. Now, this was kind of a win in a losing situation. I did go to White Castle. I got 2 double cheese and a sack of fries, which was a win because typically I would have got like 6 double cheese, a sack of fries, a sack of mozzarella sticks, and maybe some other stuff, and maybe a chocolate shake. So I think, you have to look at the totality of the situation, and you have to pick your battles and find out, and just, and look inward on yourself, and you have to give yourself grace and go, okay, that was an actual win in a losing situation. And others may not agree with me, because I know that in our community there are different types of people. There's abstainers, there's moderators, and there's the in between, because I can't necessarily moderate, and I also really can't abstain either, because I've talked about that, and it works with food where it wouldn't work for you, because you can't say, you know what, I'm going to plan to drink on Thursday or X date on our anniversary. I'm going to plan to drink on our anniversary. So that gives me something to look forward to. So I'm not drinking every other day.
Mm.
Where for like someone like Shander and I, having an absolute restriction, we're never going to eat X ever again, is a much harder proposition than on our anniversary, we're going to order whatever. We're going to order Thai food. Or for the kid's birthday, we're going to go to sushi. That gives us something to look forward to, helps keep us on track. So there's definitely different ways of approaching addictions for
Yeah.
the individual.
Yeah.
And the substance that you're abstaining or addicted to. Like, what we've said, food, you can't abstain from food forever. Food as a whole, you just can't. Just
Yeah.
like I'm not going to breathe tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not how it works. I'm going to give up water forever.
Yeah.
Or liquid,
Yeah.
And
what I was going to say on that is like, there are some people, if I'm being 100% honest, I could probably start drinking again and moderate and I would be fine. But I just don't want to anymore, if that makes sense. Like,
oh yeah,
again, because now I figured out, like, I was just trying to hide some other things and things like that. And it's just not who I am. But I understand the people that do try to moderate. I couldn't do it for very long, because I would want, my brain would start remembering like how much fun I used to have doing it. And I think it would be easy for me to slip back in. Just like when you see people like extreme weight loss, if you don't have a system that is backing you, it's very, very easy to go back to that old lifestyle and that old person and gain all the weight back very, very quickly, because you didn't change your habits, you didn't change what you were doing, and like, like having the plan thing. And I never drank really for the taste. I there were some things I said I did, and I was probably being truthful, but a lot of times I just drank for the effect, or to forget, or to use it as a solution to something else that was going on. So now it's like there's different solutions for my life. Like, I actually deal with feelings and I deal with hard situations and stuff like that. But again, it all comes down to like having the plan beforehand, because in the moment I will be extremely weak and I'll want to fall back on that old habit or that old behavior. And I just, the same, I touched on with the keto thing. Like, there's times like I just don't get sugar, because like and I understand with your community, like there's some people that are different. And what I would say to that is like, I get the judgment, especially at first, but after you kind of get down to the core, like, hey, everybody's trying to get healthy here and they're doing it in their own way. And if they can even take like a bit of what I'm doing and it helps them lose weight, like, that's a win. Like, as long as you're not pushing your ideas into a community of saying like that's not yours, and saying like, I think it should be this way, blah, blah, like that's stuff I don't do. Like, that, you don't have to agree with everything, but again, I'm trying to relate this back to the being respectful of the keto thing and all of that. Like, I learned a bunch doing keto, and there are still some habits that I have from doing that for 6 months that I still do today, even, years later. And it's helped me lose weight. It helps me understand more and kind of realize what I was eating. So I think, you know, I don't like seeing people get pushed out of communities or think that they don't belong, because if you're at least getting one good thing out of it and trying to help other people with that one thing in that community and saying like, here's what I did, I call that a win. Like, I'm not a big fan of the judging communities, you know, kind of like, oh, you have to abstain or you're not doing it right. Like, really? Like, who made the rules? Like, is it working for this group? Yes. Is it working for this person? Yes. Then it works. Um, yeah, I could talk about that all day, but yeah,
Because for
I think
me, the goal for me is sustainability. And I have to look at the long term, and I have to look and understand who I am on the inside, because fundamentally I can change habits. I can change a lot of things, but I don't think overall we can necessarily completely overhaul. Like, I'm always going to be a food addict regardless. I don't think there's anything I can do that's ever going to change that fact. I can be perfectly strict for 10 years and still be a food addict. I don't think that's ever going to be something that I'm not. And I think I have, luckily, when it comes to keto and this low carb, whole food lifestyle, that I've been able to hide some of my food addiction tendencies in with the food that I'm eating to make it sustainable, to where I don't just eat one hamburger patty and I'm like, well, I'm good. It's never going to happen. I'm going to eat between 1 and 2 pounds of beef at a time, because that way I still get that sensation of eating as much as I want. But with that comes the ability to have satiety, still maintain progress, and I'm not reaching for all of the things that would lead me down a darker path. Am I still kind of like, does it still kind of a binge to a certain degree? You can look at it that way, because, do I need 2 pounds of beef at a sitting? I mean, if I'm eating one meal a day, you kind of look at like a calorie factor, protein amount, the macros, and kind of, well, what do I need in a day? Can I play to my weaknesses and utilize something like this diet as a strength? So, like you said, with alcohol, you could, in theory, go back and start having a drink every once in a while. I don't necessarily think that would probably go over well with the family. I doubt that your wife would be like, "Yeah, let's try that. That sounds like a good idea."
yeah, it wouldn't go
And
over well with me either. Like, that's the
right.
big thing. Like,
Yeah.
I've changed. Like, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so you've made that fundamental change that's not desirable to you anymore, because you've seen where that path can lead. Even if you think you could handle the path, there's always you're never 100% certain you could handle the path. There's no guarantee that you could handle the path. That's why, for me, staying in the life, kind of staying in the lifestyle, and really this community to me is a selfish endeavor. And I've talked about this on multiple occasions, that this community is a selfish endeavor for me. This community is a lifeline for me. And it's selfish to me, because one, I want to surround myself with like-minded people, which is kind of a selfish thing. I want to make sure I can maintain success, selfish, but I try to offset that by providing a place for others to come in and join and share their stories. Anybody's welcome to come on here with me. Not just if you have a channel. You don't have a YouTube channel necessarily that you talk about your addiction recovery. You had a YouTube channel that talked about race cars,
yeah,
and that was phenomenal. That was you need to do more of that. But your IT guy, so, obviously, like you said in the beginning of this, your alcoholism and such and your recovery doesn't define you. Where for someone like me, I feel that, and this is not a judgment by any stretch of the imagination, more of a self-realization for me, is that while keto may not define me, I utilize this and a channel to ensure that I can maintain success, because I feel that if I were to stop doing all of this and interacting with people and not doing a channel and not making content and not trying to be a kind of a beacon or a lighthouse for others, then I would relapse and I would just go on about my way and I would not be on a path that I'm okay with. Now I have Chandra and we keep each other on track to a certain degree, but even then, I don't know, because sometimes it's easy for us to, like, if we go to the grocery store together, that's when things happen. That's when pies end up in the cart. So, like I said, this is, this keto thing, the channel, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, to me, any, wherever you're listening from, is a selfish endeavor for me. It's not about money, but it's about my own personal success. And I feel that I need all of you to maintain my success. So, I mean, yeah.
And I wanted to say too, like, I don't want to say like keto defines you. I want to say like the 400-pound you or what have you doesn't define you. Like that's the way I look at it. Like, and that's what I meant. Like, I don't look like, I don't want people to think like there's Keith, the recovering alcoholic. People don't look at you like, oh, there's Dustin, the recovering overeater. It's like, now here's Dustin getting healthy. And I don't think what you're doing is selfish by any means, because you are giving back so much. And I think that you just standing up and talking about this stuff is huge. And I've told you that, like, even though I don't have a lot of my stuff online, I still do it in person. I speak at events every single week, and I do stuff, like I tell people my story, because if I can just connect with one person out of a room of 100, like that's a win for me. Like if someone hears my story and they hear their story and mine, like, oh, he made it out. Like same with you, like somebody hears of you're 100 pounds down, like that is life changing. Like you have to change all your clothes, you have to change you got to change all this stuff. Like you always see people like holding their old pants up and stuff and like this huge weight loss things. Like, yeah, those pants aren't you anymore. Like that's the thing. Yes, you're keto now, but you're not the overeater. You're not the 400-pound guy. So that's what I kind of meant by that. So I think you running a community is definitely not selfish at all. Yes, you do get benefits from it, but everybody does things that benefit them, because if they don't, if you give all of everything away, it's going to just destroy you eventually. So again, you're finding the balance of you are getting something out of your community, but you're also giving back more than you're getting. And I don't know if you realize that, like making these videos and things for other people is huge. Like even if you only get 30 people that watch the video, like if one person is like, oh, I didn't know you could do that, like that's a win. Like a lot of times with social media, everybody always looks at these big numbers, but me and you went through all these keto channels to like see, how everything was doing, what people were doing. And all those people are helping others. Like, and that's huge. Like 99% of people will never step on camera and say, this is how they lost weight, and then stay doing it, like being there, being a face for a community. Like what you're doing is huge. And I'll say this, like if I ever have any questions on keto, or if I know somebody that wants to do it, like I send them to you, or I come to you, like, because you are kind of in my eyes like a pillar of the keto community, because you've been doing it for so long, and you've earned it. Like you've earned your place of, hey, I went from 400 to 300. Like that's huge. Like that is a massive change. That's some people don't even weigh 100 pounds. Like you lost an entire person, mentally and physically. So yeah, I think what you're doing is great. So I don't want you ever to downplay that or
Right.
think it's too selfish, for sure.
And I understand that. And I try not necessarily downplay it, but I also try to make sure that I'm not in this for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's a delicate balance with sustainability. As if you look at like a lifestyle like this, there's a balance. I have to find a balance with eating things that are on plan, off plan, in order to maintain long-term success. And the same thing with a channel, running a channel. That's one thing that you've helped me with, and we touched on at the very top, or I touched on the very top of the show, was you've helped me maintain my sanity in this channel because you help me look at analytics, help me understand things, decipher things, and we go back and forth when something new comes out, or if one of my videos does something strange and I'm like, whatever the numbers look like, because that can derail me with this, which is what keeps me on track with the whole thing, right? So that's kind of like where the whole selfishness. I mean, it's not. I'm not being like self-deprecating with the selfishness. It's more just to outline like my why, and I think how important is your why, and then how important your why is, and then how important is the what you're going to do with the why. And so you helping me with the what helps me with my why, which is a convoluted way of saying you help me with the back end of YouTube. Because for people who don't know, like one of the videos he put up was a video, a very detailed video about the history of the Pikes Peak race, and video got like, what was it, 2 million views?
Yeah,
that's insane. That's like point zero whatever percent of videos uploaded to YouTube get that kind of traction, and there's millions of videos uploaded every day on YouTube. So that just to kind of give a perspective of how huge that is, of an accomplishment to be able to put together a video that's compelling enough, detailed enough. I think I watched that video twice. But so you're welcome, by the way.
I made so much money off of it. That's the reason I did it.
You made more money off that one video than I've made on this channel so far.
And that wasn't the whole reason. And
I know. But
that's not why you do this either.
No, it's not. But that's what I was trying to also get to, like the sustainability of a channel because of how much work goes behind the scenes. Not like there's a lot of prep that's involved with an interview like this, but I mean, especially for someone like you where I know you, so there wasn't a lot of prep or research or anything like that, but there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes, coordinating guests, getting guests, reaching out to them, or the me going to the grocery store. So like Jackie had said something in the comments about that's why she doesn't go. That's why she does whatever the mobile order, whatever they bring out to the car. That doesn't work for me. I don't do anything really besides grocery shop or take the girl to preschool or be at home. Now I will be probably starting a job sometime in the next couple of weeks, probably at Costco. But so I'll be at Costco a lot. But for me, going to the grocery store is part of this. I'm always looking at new things, that we can showcase for the channel and stuff. I mean, that's just part of the process. So there's that. There's a shopping for the channel. There's all the things that happen, and it's a delicate balance because eventually, hopefully, the channel will start to pay for itself. That's the goal, really, just to make it pay for itself. And I mean, that's kind of an impossible task, but I want to, because I mean, for me, the selfish part is I want to continue to make content because the more content I make, the more interactions that I have, the easier this is for me to be sustainable. So the more sustainable the channel is, the more sustainable I feel I can be. Now, I can be probably still somewhat successful without a channel, but I like the interaction. I like the ability to, and have guests on and be somebody in the community that people can go to for questions. And as a person too, I try to at least how flawed I am in my journey. My journey is nowhere near perfect, but I think it's a highlight or a showcase of reality. Because I think a lot of creators will put this image of themselves out into the community that's not necessarily fully representative of who they are or what their actual process is, or their results for that matter. So
I just now noticed that there's chat on StreamYard because I don't use StreamYard. So I see a lot of this stuff here now. Did you want to go over any of these questions? I do also have my surprise that I promised. I do have it ready. So whenever we're ready for that, that is good. And I can go relieve the wife of the kids here from running around insane. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah.
I'd like to go over some of the questions if you didn't have anything, so we can.
Sure. If you want to, if you just tell me which ones and I'll highlight them.
Oh no, it's your channel, buddy. I didn't see anything that really like stood out. I like the comments on the recovering alcoholic and carbaholic, and carbs are more difficult. I would say yes, it's definitely harder for me because they're so easy to grab. So easy. It's way easier to grab carbs than it is alcohol. I will say that
Because they're cheaper.
Yeah.
Like a bottle of alcohol is $20-some.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like one thing that really keeps me from doing, okay, so I think it was yesterday, the day before, we realized how much alcohol we actually have in the house, which for people who don't drink is actually seems to be a considerable amount. Like up on our cabinet, I hadn't paid attention. It's like 3 bottles of wine up on a cabinet. That way, it usually gets covered up with other stuff. There's like a bottle of vodka up there. I'm like, I didn't even know where that came from. There's some alcohol. Like there is one bottle of whiskey that is in my freezer that I will keep forever. It's a little pint bottle of Jameson that my friend's mother gave to me at his funeral. So that will always, no matter what, will stay in my freezer.
Yeah.
Because that's just a silly token. It's not really silly, but it's a token of a friendship lost and all that stuff. But
yeah, I would keep that too. Like, yeah, especially now when it's not as tempting, or it's not tempting. It's like 1%. That's something I could do. I could keep that in my freezer because, yeah, and that has a symbol attached to it.
Yeah. Did you see anything else you wanted to talk about? Anybody else have any questions? Alcohol can be cheaper. I had a time with drinking 40s of Magnum.
That's rough.
Ooh, man.
Steel Reserve and all that. I'll just tear you up.
I never played the whole Edward 40 hands game. I watched it being played a bunch.
You saw me do it, I think, once there.
I probably did see you do it once. Yeah. I mean, that was just like one. I just didn't need how do you go to the bathroom? You know what I mean? Like
it was you had to finish. That was the rough part.
Oh. So we look like alcoholics, but we really don't drink much. I buy bottles because they look cool and it accumulates. That's like I remember one day we were at Jungle Gyms and she bought like 4 cases or like 4 12-packs of the Mountain Dew alcohol that you can't get in Indiana for some reason.
Yeah.
I bought a 12-pack of that when I was in Tennessee last summer for the low carb for better health conference. I brought it back. I put them all in the fridge. I had maybe 3 of them, and I ended up giving them all to our son, like our middle child. So I'm like, well, he drinks. He goes out to the bars and stuff. Like, I'm never going to drink these. They didn't taste them because they were the 0, so there was no sugar outside of the alcohol or whatever. But they didn't taste good. So I was like, well, I'm not going to drink them. And I mean, I'm not going to drink enough to really catch a buzz on it. So it's kind of silly to me. I bought them because I wanted to try them. I tried them and I gave them away. No, Mad Dog is if you're like 16. Anyway. So, so she says there's still some in there and he gave 3 cases away. Yeah, so they can't be that good. Maybe the full sugar ones were better. I don't know. Anyway, if you want to go ahead and let's see. Keith, thanks for sharing your story and insight. I found it very helpful. And thanks, Dustin, for bringing Keith on. I've had have a great rest of the day and see some of you in person later this afternoon. Well, thank you, Charlie. I appreciate you so very much. I got a chance to meet Charlie the other day at an indie meetup in Avon at Smoky Bones.
I was going to say, too, the thing that I have for you and your viewers is something that I teased to you a little bit, but I wanted to make it public for anybody that could possibly use it, even if they don't. The AI that I created will make you a full keto shopping list. It gives you a meal plan with recipe, how to cook it, and the net carbs. So that's something that could be useful. I will provide that because I built something out similar, and sold it to a whole other person for a lot of money, but this was something I was working on for you, and this gave me a good opportunity to give it out to your audience because it doesn't cost anything. And yeah, so I can show that off whenever we are ready.
Okay, yeah. Let's go ahead. You want to share your screen and show it?
Sure. And just to preface this, I use Chat GPT like AI, and you can do this with probably Google Bard or the Bing AI, but the Chat GPT is the one that I've spent like 2,000 hours in already. So I'm going to show first the one if you pay for the AI, and then I've also got the prompting for if you want to just use the free one. So I will show that. Let me figure out StreamYard here.
So while you're doing that, have you tried that with Copilot? Because Copilot gives you access to Chat GPT 4.
Maybe that's it. No, I haven't. So maybe this will work with Copilot, and I will let you. I can share that out too with you after if you want to share with your audience. But let me see if it'll let me.
Also, Danny said something about needs total carbs as well. Maybe because I think some people will go with total carbs, some people will go with net carbs. Depends on where people are with their journey. A lot of times, because even when you asked me yesterday about the net carbs, like average of net carbs, and I said typically people will do a 20 net carbs up to like a 30 total carbs. So just depending on where people are in their journey, some people have to go by total carbs and keep them 20 total carbs or less. It's a very nuanced situation. So, I mean, that is kind of a difficult thing to build into that, but.
All right. So, and that's fine. You can, the beauty of this whole thing is you can change it. If you want total carbs, great. And that was the big thing. So, can you guys see my screen?
Let me go ahead and I'll add the stage. So let me see. I'll make it full size here.
So this was the one I was originally building for you. So this also can offer replacements for popular food items and give you a keto replacement. This may be someone for more like someone that's new into keto, but also can give you ideas. Like that's the way I think of this, is getting ideas. But you can input your specific needs or wants in here and what your goals are, and it can help spit out a personalized plan. But the way that I originally tested it was with the net carbs, but really you can just say, and since this is all keto focused, I programmed this one. This is a custom one to be only give keto advice.
So for those who may not be able to see the text, it says, can you give me a full week's meal plan, include total and net carbs?
So this is what I start with. So it gives you a little bit, and it says the plan is designed to keep net carbs under 20 grams, but so this will give you total and net now, because I told it to, since you guys, again, I'm not in this. So that'll spit all of this out. And you, again, since I don't know if there's something on here that doesn't vibe, but I don't think, from what I've seen it spit out has been pretty good. And I think the best thing that I enjoy about this was the shopping list, because again, for me, I had to have a plan, because if I went to even still today, even without, like, if I don't have a plan going to the grocery store, I'll get extra stuff.
Right. And I think you could also customize this to say, I want to be more meat focused, higher protein. Because like I see, like, this is like, chia seed pudding and stuff like that, where some people may not want to have that. So, I mean, it's very customizable is what I'm understanding.
Yeah. And so you can say, I would like alternatives for each meal as well. But for the sake of time, so here's our meal plan. It gives you breakfast, lunch, dinner, and I think the prompt I did before, I also asked for snacks, and it will give us that. But so I'll say I'm going to say, give me a shopping list for this week's plan. Include some meat focused snacks. So again, this is going to tell you exactly what you need to buy while you're at the store for that specific week, so you don't overbuy. And again, you can steer this whichever way you would like. You can tell it you're more meat focused, so that every single meal that it gives you, or every single week that it gives you, will be more meat focused. So here's our shopping list for that. And then lastly, I'll say, give me a full cooking instructions for each meal. And now you can kind of have this spit it all out at once, but I like going little by little, because one, it can get stuck. It's not perfect. And two, if there's anything you want to change, like say being more meat focused, you can tell it that and it'll redo all of it for you. Excuse me. Now, I'll wait for this one to finish, but again, you kind of get the idea. It's telling you exactly how to cook this. I'm trying to make, I built this to make it as simple as possible, because for me, like with anything, if it's not simple, I've got so many other things going on that it's really easy for me to deviate away if it's too hard. And that's just me. So I built this thing to be as simple as possible. That's why it was called Keto Simple, obviously. And make it very structured and easy. So again, I'll give you the link to this to share out in StreamYard for people. And that way, you can share this out. And if anybody wants to use it, great. That's exactly, I want somebody to use it, is what it comes down to. Let me edit this and I'll link.
So I can put this link in the description below, and I will probably also go through this and make a video on how to utilize this tool.
Now, this is the paid version. And if I'm going to send this over to you here. That's a link directly to it. And for the free version, which might work with the Copilot, I'll send you over a document to put somewhere on your channel, so that you can give that out. And it'll be in 5 different parts, so you can prime it, because a lot of people obviously don't prime the AI and they get bad results. So it's all about how you tell it to interact. So yeah, I'll see
Danny's asking
if
how
we
much
can
is
use
the paid
Copilot with it.
version.
I'll test that, so we can make sure it's free for everybody. The paid version of Chat GPT is like $20 a month. I use it a lot, but if Copilot will do it, then I would say yeah.
Because now, currently, Copilot's in like a beta. It's free, and I utilize it a lot to mess around with photos, mostly just like creating like logos, t-shirt designs, just to play around with it. Maybe some things I'll use, maybe some things I won't. Because I have and had used normal Chat GPT 3.5, and I utilize it to help me sometimes when I'm trying to come up with like video ideas or script ideas, or kind of wrangle my own thoughts together. Because sometimes my thoughts, or the way I'm thinking about it, or the way that I'm wording something, isn't the most efficient. It's not, the economy of words. Sometimes we're making things more understandable, because, like, I mean, just trying to always, create better content for people. So this is definitely something that's going to be extremely helpful, and I definitely will probably make some videos on this, because this is extremely exciting. I just had a friend yesterday go, she said that she's going to be doing a 3-month work challenge. Excuse me. A 3-month weight loss challenge at work. and she's going to start going to the gym. And she reached out to me and said, hey, can you give me a meal plan? And like my typical response is, you don't need a meal plan, because I'm always, I'm a person that doesn't necessarily use meal plans. But I think for a lot of people, breaking it down like this is extremely helpful, especially for new people. So I think that this is something that can truly be beneficial. And I think me being able to make a video on this and break it down for people so that they can utilize it. So I will be putting links for the free, the paid, and I will also try to do something like this. And maybe maybe we can work together this week and maybe see how it works with Copilot.
Yep.
And then I also want to talk to you backstage about some stuff as well, because I want to make sure you get any credit you need for this.
Oh, no, and it's not a big deal. Again,
Well, I understand, but still, I want, I would like to be able to maybe, this is something that can totally work for all of us. Then, definitely credit is due. You put a lot of effort and time into this. So, and
yeah.
you helped me so much.
And that's the thing too. Like, this thing can be used for so much more than meal plan and meal prep.
Yeah.
And the reason I like this is because you can customize this to you and also get ideas. Like, I just asked to give me 10 breakfast ideas with total and net carbs, and it gives you the ingredients and what it is. Like, this can be used for so much more. And again, it's programmed to be able to give you replacements for popular items. And you can also ask it for advice on switching to keto. And again, doesn't replace a human. It's all obviously there for ideas, but they're pretty valid because this thing is smarter than any human, in my opinion. But again, there has to be a human element, and it's not perfect. But overall, this works. And I built one, and I won't show it because I know we're on time here. I built one that helped people get sober that didn't want to like necessarily reach out to a person, and you can ask it how do you like stay sober during holidays? How do you do this? How do you go out to bars and not drink? Like, what can you do to replace stuff while you're there? And you can put in those situations where you would feel uncomfortable, and it will give you advice on what to do instead. Or a lot of them, it comes up with like have a plan. So I've built. I'm trying to use AI for good and help people, and that's the two ways that I've done it that affect me and the people around me. Is have the sober bot, and then also this keto bot, the keto meals and information bot, and essentially just be able to help people because a lot of people don't go out in public all the time, and a lot of people are ashamed to ask other people because they'll feel weak, even with like keto, like how am I supposed to not eat a whole bag of jelly beans in one sitting, type of thing. And like that's what I built this to help with. Like you can ask that. So yeah, I'll get you the rest of the information. You've got the link to give out to the people that are on the stream. Because as I promised, I wanted to make sure I give this out, and them. Hopefully, the value that you guys get out of it is amazing, because that's what I built it for.
Well, I appreciate this very much, and I'm looking forward to utilizing this and testing it out and getting it out in the hands of people that this can, really help, especially new people. A lot of us old timers have things kind of solidified in how we do things, but even for someone like me, it may be helpful to mix things up a little bit, give me some, breathe new life into things. So definitely going to be something to play around with and see how it impacts. And and if you're playing around with it and you do see issues, let me know. I'll talk, and Keith and I will work together to to rectify anything. But do, like you said, keep in mind that this is AI. This is computer based. This is not perfect. It may even try to give things that may not necessarily be, because it's pulling information from the internet. And Jackie said something that's very helpful too. It could be something that budgeting too, like you probably punch in low cost recipe ideas, right? and
Yep.
and help me with keeping budget. Can you give me a shopping list that would be under 200 a week or
Yep.
400 a month or whatever your budgeted meal plan is?
Yep. I mean, dude, I built it in so you could eat fast food keto. Like I can do all of that. And I'm not trying to replace, because there are coaches that charge like $25,000 to do all this stuff, and I'm not trying to replace them. Do your thing. Uh, but again, this can be used for a lot of that. And again, I pushed it to only pull keto information, and version 4 is very good with a lot of that. But yeah, if you see any improvements, definitely let Dustin know, and I can change some of this. But again, this is meant to be an idea generator and make things easy. You
A
can
guide, but I would probably also always be mindful that any information that's pulling in may be for a serving size, and that serving size may not be what you would want. So you may see the chia seed pudding is X number of total carbs versus net carbs, but you're going to eat a serving that's 3 times bigger than that to get your macros where you want it. And I imagine we could probably even play around with, I need a meal plan to get me to X number of grams of protein a day, X number of grams of fat per day, and keep myself under X number of carbs per day. And I imagine you could probably put that out as well. But we'll be, definitely trying that out and playing around with it.
see that's good. See, that's stuff I don't think about because I'm not in that lifestyle. Um, but yeah, so you can ask it for the serving sizes like that. That's something I didn't think about. So you can just tell it that. And that's another thing, like to think about when you're trying to interact with it. Like you can tell it to change certain things, or give you, like you were saying, like I want to stay under this amount, or I want to do this. And again, it can help with all of that. So
This is impressive. So I will go ahead and we will go ahead. You've got stuff that you need to do. You've got the little ones running around. You've got a wife that needs to be relieved. And I want to just go ahead and start off by saying thank you so much, Keith, not only for being here and talking with me and sharing your experience with all of us today, but for putting the time and effort into making this tool that will hopefully be very beneficial to a lot of us. And that goes a long way because this is something that it's a labor of kind of obsession with you, because I've taken 2 of your AI classes and maybe you'll be doing more. And if you do more, I will post about that. So anybody that's interested in learning more about AI and things like this can take that course. If you decide to do any more of those, I will keep everybody um, up to date with that as well, because utilizing this to make my life more streamlined, especially as a content creator, is hugely beneficial because it's easy to kind of just throw darts at something and hopefully something sticks. But utilizing a tool like this, it does kind of help, wrangle or, narrow ideas down and kind of give you ideas, even though I don't always follow it.
yeah.
But, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody who has been in the chat talking about their experiences. And I thank everybody who's listening later on. I want to thank all my members that's scrolling across the screen now. If you would consider becoming a member, that would be amazing. Thanks to everybody who likes and shares and subscribes and all that stuff. And thank everybody so much. And thank you again, Keith. You are hugely beneficial to me, and I can't express that enough. You do a lot for me, and you help me still very much, more than you even probably know. But with that, I will say goodbye. And anything you want to plug before we go?
No, I was gonna say I appreciate you too, and also I'll say I enjoy talking with you too, because it kind of makes me focus in on some things because I have so much going on. So I definitely appreciate it, and I work remotely and not around people, so you're hugely beneficial to me as well. So don't think it's one way for sure. So I appreciate that, and again, I appreciate everything you're doing. Like, just again, being a voice and a pillar in the community, even though it may not seem like you're getting as many views as everybody else. Like you're still somebody's like beacon to see like this is possible. So yeah, I think you're doing good things too. That's why I came on here. As far as anything to plug, not really. I'm not too good at promoting myself, but again, I do teach AI classes. I build bots like these for companies and things like that. But again, yeah, if you guys want more on that, you can reach out to me. I think Dustin had my Facebook profile in there.
Yeah, just search at KeithKicks for on Facebook, and you will find him.
Yep, and I'll keep you informed on any more classes. Right now, I'm building out a full master class on ChatGPT, as well as a bot building class, so you can build something like this. Because I found out there's people that are selling these bots to companies for like $20,000 and $30,000 because you can spit out all these meal plans as a coach and give these to people, and it's going to save you like hundreds of hours, and you can just specify to that person and then build out their whole. You can build out a whole month or whatever with this thing. Like you can build out a whole year of meals on a calendar so you can see them with the shopping list and all that stuff. Like this is that powerful. But again, I don't do it for that reason. And I wanted to give back again to you and your community because I think you're doing something awesome. So this is all, that's why I said anybody that was live would get this because yeah, this is very, very powerful. And if you want to know more on it too, you can reach out to Dustin or I.
All right. Well, I appreciate you so much. I'll see you in the morning tomorrow with my coffee talk. Tomorrow, coffee with me, 7:30 a.m. Eastern. And we'll see you next week and tomorrow, and we'll keep going.